once was a poor miller with a beautiful daughter. One day, the miller was baking some bread. The loaves were so fine, he thought he would try and sell the bread to the king. "But how can I impress the king so that he will buy my loaves of bread?" pondered the miller. He then had an idea. He told the king that his daughter could spin straw into gold. Now the king was quite a greedy man, and he thought to himself that if the miller's daughter could turn straw into gold, it would make him even richer than he already was. "Well," he said to the miller, who was standing there with his basket of loaves, "bring me your daughter, and I will put her to the test. If she can do as you say, I will buy your loaves of bread." So the daughter came to the palace, and the king led her into a big room full of bales of straw. In the corner was a large spinning wheel. He turned to her and said, "Spin all the straw into gold by the morning, and I will buy your father's loaves. If you don't, then you must die." He then left the girl, shutting the big wooden door with a loud thud and bolting it firmly with an even louder clunk. The poor girl wept. "What am I to do?" she sobbed. She really had no idea how to spin at all. She began to feel very frightened. Then she heard the latch of the big door open and saw a strange little man enter the room. "Good evening, Mistress Miller," he said. "Why are you crying?" The miller's daughter pointed to the bales of straw and the spinning wheel. "The king has ordered me to spin all the straw into gold by morning, and if I don't, then I must die." "Well now," said the little man, "I know how to spin straw into gold." "You do?" she answered. "Yes," said the man, "but I need something in return. What do you have to give me?" The girl offered her necklace. The little man took the necklace and set to work in front of the spinning wheel. Whir, whir went the wheel as fast as could be. One reel full of gold thread. Whir, whir. Another reel full. Another, then another. The miller's daughter watched the wheel spin and spin round and round until she became quite sleepy. Morning came, and the girl awoke to hear the big iron bolt on the door slide across and the heavy latch lift. In walked the king. He could hardly believe his eyes. All the bales of straw had gone, and the room was full of strands of bright golden thread. The king was astonished at the sight of the glittering gold before him. He forgot all about buying silly loaves of bread. Straight away he took the girl into another room, much bigger than the one before, and packed with bales of straw. The king told the girl, "Spin all the straw into gold by the morning. If you do not, then you must die." The king turned and left the room, shutting the huge wooden door with a loud thud and bolting it firmly with an even louder clunk. The miller's daughter wept in despair. "What am I to do?" she wailed, and sat on one of the large bales of straw. As she sobbed, the bolt on the door slid across, the heavy latch lifted, and through the door walked the funny little man. "Good evening, Mistress Miller," he said. "Why are you crying?" The miller's daughter pointed to the bales of straw and the spinning wheel. "The king has ordered me to spin all the straw into gold by morning. If I don't, then I must die." "You have more straw to spin," he said. "What will you give me to spin it for you?" The girl answered quickly, "My ring! I can give you my ring." So the little man took the ring, sat in front of the spinning wheel, and began to spin. The miller's daughter watched the wheel spin and spin round and round until she became quite sleepy. Morning came, and the girl awoke to hear the big iron bolt on the door slide across and the heavy latch lift. In walked the king. He stood in amazement. The straw was gone, and the room was full of bright, shimmering gold thread glistening in the morning sun. But again the king's greed got the better of him, and he certainly wasn't thinking of buying silly loaves of bread from the miller. He was thinking to himself that even though she was a poor miller's daughter, she could bring riches beyond his dreams. He grasped the girl's hand and led her away through a winding passage, up some narrow, creaky stairs, and along a wide corridor. They came to the biggest door the girl had ever seen. Even the king had to struggle to lift the huge iron latch to open it. Inside was a room even bigger than before and packed with straw. "Now, young lady," said the king, "you must spin the straw into gold by morning. This time, if you do so, you will be rewarded and become my wife." The king then left the room, shutting the huge wooden door with a loud thud and bolting it with an even louder clunk, frightening the birds outside from their nests and creating an echo throughout the palace. The poor girl sat forlornly amongst the huge bales of straw. As she did so, the heavy bolt slid across, the huge latch lifted, and in through the door stepped the strange little man. "Good evening, Mistress Miller," he said. "Why are you crying?" The miller's daughter pointed at the bales of straw and the spinning wheel. "The king has ordered me to spin all the straw, but this time I have nothing to give you." So the man said, "If you marry the king and become queen, you must give me your first-born child." The girl was in such despair that she agreed. So the little man took his position at the spinning wheel and worked into the night, spinning the wheel round and round. The girl felt dizzy once more and fell into a deep, deep sleep. In the morning, the king slid the bolt across and lifted the latch of the huge wooden door. And as he opened it, he saw the room was full of the brightest gold, glistening and sparkling from floor to ceiling. He was full of delight and married the miller's daughter as he had promised. 1 year later, the new queen gave birth to a child. The little man appeared as he had said and demanded to be given the baby. The queen was in such grief at the idea of letting go of her child that she offered him all the treasure and riches of the kingdom. But the man told her that what he wished for most in the world was not treasure, but a living companion. The queen began to sob, and the man felt sorry for her. "I will return each day for 3 days. If in that time you can tell me my name, you may keep the child," he said, and with that he disappeared. The following day the little man returned. The queen began guessing names. Balthazar, Caspar, Melchior. But the man would only shake his head and say, "That is not my name." The following day, the queen tried some unusual names. This time she started with Lacy Leg, Pig Shanks, Turnip Toes, Bumble Pie. But alas, the man shook his head and repeated, "That is not my name." The queen was at her wit's end and sent her favourite messenger out into the kingdom to discover any names she had not thought of. The messenger searched the town, villages and farms. When he entered the forest by the big mountain where the white fox and golden bear live, he heard a strange voice. Peering through the trees, he saw a ridiculous little man hopping and skipping in circles. The man was singing, "Today I bake, tomorrow brew, the next I'll have the young queen's child. Ha! Glad I am that no one knew that Rumplestiltskin I am styled." The messenger rushed back to the palace where the queen was waiting and told her what he had seen and heard. The following day, when the little man appeared at the palace, the queen started guessing some names. First she said, "Larry," then "Harry," then "Barry." Then she said, "How about Rumplestiltskin?" The little man jumped up and down, cursing and shouting and getting very red-faced. He stamped his right leg so hard on the ground it became buried in the earth. He then wriggled about so much, pulling this way and that, he managed to tear himself in two. And that, I'm afraid, was that for poor Rumplestiltskin. So the queen and her child were safe, and there were lots more sons and daughters born to the queen and king. And there was no more straw, or spinning wheels, or reels of gold, and the proud miller baked bread for the palace, and it was the best bread in the whole kingdom. Goodbye. Thank you.